So, my name is Matt. I mean, obviously it's short for Matthew, but I like Matt, and forever everyone has always called me Matt. Except for when I was at school. One of the bullies used to call me Math. Math, hey everyone, it's Math. How you doing, Math? Math, you alright, Math? He did this because he knew it wasn't what I wanted to be called, and he knew that it was a small thing that he could do that would show that he had no respect for me and wanted to upset me. That's what bullies do. Anyway, this is a video about why a few years ago I stopped saying ladies and gentlemen on stage. Now, it's not as if I'd ever had a complaint. Nobody who identified outside of the binary had ever pulled me up on the fact that my most used vocal tic excluded them, but that's not the point. The point is that it did. I'm really lucky. I perform my own material. I'm completely in charge of what I say on stage, and my job is to make people happy, to entertain groups of strangers. So if there's something that runs the risk of making any of those strangers feel disincluded, that reminds them of their differences rather than uniting them into one nice happy audience, and if that something can be very easily changed, well, then why wouldn't I want to change it? Apart from anything else, it would be unprofessional not to. But let's talk about the everything else. If someone has endured a lifelong, painful, confusing journey to become who they are, and it so happens that that means they're part of a group that has stratospheric rates of assaults, abuse, homelessness, discrimination, a community that is seeing the meagre rights they fought for stripped away on a daily basis. If someone has gone through all of this because the pain of staying how they were is worse, and then, after all of this, someone deliberately calls them by a name or a label that they've spent their lifetime growing away from, that really hurts. And the person that calls them that is a jerk. A University of Texas study found that transgender youth who were able to use their chosen name exhibited a 56% decrease in suicidal behaviour. 56%. Just from being able to use the name they want to use. Think about that. But still, that's not necessarily the point either. It's even simpler than that. If you're Christian, and I always refer to you as a Satanist, that's going to annoy you. If you're French, but I always introduce you to people as an Australian, then it's going to make things harder for you and you're going to get irked. And if I do these things deliberately, knowing that it upsets you, knowing that it'll make simple things more difficult, then I'm a bully. And if you're sat watching this already furiously hammering out a comment about my liberal elite cancel culture attack on Christmas or something, then just chill for a second. Look, I know things like this might seem new and confusing, but so did the remote for the TV when you first bought it. But you're smart. You figured it out pretty quick, right? You might even think that this is all silly. I mean, if it was happening to you, you probably wouldn't, but it probably isn't, so you might. Fine, go ahead. Think it's silly if you really have to. You can think that and still be decent to other people. Nobody's telling you what to think or what to do. You're a grown-up, you can do what you like. I'm just hoping that given that choice, you'll want to be a decent human. And it really is that simple. It's about being a nice person. It's about manners. Call people what they'd like you to call them. Try not to exclude people. Unless someone gives you a really good reason not to, be friendly. For decades, my performances were peppered with ladies and gentlemen. It's a really useful little rhythmic phrase to drop. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you this. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat. But for all that time, it didn't occur to me that my audience might not be made up of just ladies or gentlemen. And before you start saying that all this non-binary stuff is a modern thing and just didn't exist a few years ago, come on now. Pluto was only discovered in 1930, but you know what? Pretty sure it was always there. We just couldn't see it. Now, me not realising that is my mistake, but if I'd continued using ladies and gentlemen after knowing that it didn't include everyone in my audience, well then, I'd be implicitly saying that my work isn't for some people. And you know what? Even if you're the kind of buffoon who thinks that the idea of pronouns are part of the snowflake wokerati war on family values or something, not letting as many people as possible get into your work is just dumb. Like I said, my job is to make people happy, to entertain. I started out as a street performer, and I'll never forget the wonderful feeling I'd get every time someone made the choice to stop and watch. When someone wants to be in my audience, it's a compliment. It's an act of temporary friendship. They trust me to show them a good time, to make them laugh. I want everyone and anyone to feel welcomed into my audiences. Of course I do. Why on earth would anyone not want that? There is literally no good reason for me to not try and be as inclusive as possible on stage and in life. So, I never used the phrase ladies and gentlemen anymore. It took a few months of making sure that I remembered the change, and these days it's second nature. Sometimes I call them delightful people, sometimes I call them idiots, mostly though I call them friends. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, then please do subscribe to my channel, click the like button and leave a not too angry comment. Oh, and give it a share. You can see my full solo show live in London on January the 28th. I'd love to see you there. Details are below the video. Also below the video are links to my socials where you can hurl insults at me, and my Patreon where you can help support my work. And a big thanks to everyone who already does that. The supporting my work bit, not the insults. Thanks for watching. See you next time.